بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. All right, so tonight's session is with my older sister. I think she wants me to definitely say older, Nazneen Hussein. And I wanted to bring her on for a couple of reasons. We have been talking with several women from the community who have chosen to be homemakers, and we've looked at their life story and how they made that choice and those kinds of things. So she, my sister, has also gone through that stage. So she's, raised 3 children, and then she went through a time when she was a homemaker as well, but now she's transitioned to this entrepreneurship. So I wanted to kind of talk about both those phases. And I don't know if you want to kind of, do you want to start with the purses, or kind of start from the beginning with marriage and family life and those kinds of things?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I feel like I know everybody because I've been all your wonderful interviewees before. And so, alhamdulillah, it has been a great journey for me. And I would like to start kind of from the beginning so that it kind of shows how I built those skills that have really brought me to where I am today. Not knowing that I'd become a purse entrepreneur or even an entrepreneur in general. But I think that somehow early on in life, I realized that there was always this opportunity for me to see what people needed, and then to be able to find how I could help them out. Whether it was soon after we got married, I started to work for the first time in real retail in a very high-end department store that lasted 3 months. But in that 3 months, I realized that there were people that were coming in and asking me for suggestions for accessories and such, and I had a talent for it and was able to help them out. Soon after, I realized that job was not going to lead me to where I wanted to go, which was going back to school. And so I thought, okay, a bank would often offer employees tuition reimbursement if we went into school afterwards. And my hopes were that after my husband would finish his dental school, that I would be able to return back to my schooling, which I began with majoring in psychology, and I had almost completed, but again, being wanting to be with my husband during our married life, I decided that, oh, we'll be together, and then I'll go back to school once he's finished his dental school. But as many of your past people have said, that sometimes we plan, but Allah has a better plan. And soon after I started working at the bank, I worked there for about a year. And then just when I was about to get ready for the tuition reimbursement program, I got pregnant. And but before that, I realized that in the bank also, I could recognize what people needed. And so I was able to become a seller of bank products without really trying very hard. So I won many awards in the bank for being a good seller. And that was kind of interesting. But so I did become pregnant, and then realized that this was the next stage of my life that I needed to concentrate on and become really good at. So at 21, I didn't realize what all it took to change your entire focus of your life. It becomes totally, centric towards this other human being that you have to raise. And so I delved into it full force. We didn't have a lot of income. We didn't have any income. In fact, we were quite in debt at that time because he was in dental school. But I decided that I would do whatever I needed to stimulate his growth and his abilities, as a mother should for a child. So instead of buying toys, I would make toys. I read up on what stimulates a child, how to nourish the child, how to, entertain him and so forth. So it took me from becoming totally a student to a person who was only was taking care of myself and then later my husband, but then all of a sudden here I'm thrown into a profession of taking care of a child. Once I realized that that was my mission, then I decided that I would be the best that I could. Soon we finished, our medical. I mean, my husband finished his dental school and he started his practice, and we moved to Pennsylvania, and here we moved here with 3 children. And as I was a mother of 3, and my husband was taking care of his practice and so forth, I realized that my job was to be with the kids, but somehow, because I was taking them out and entertaining them in different ways, I landed a position of teaching cooking classes in an art studio to help out a friend who wanted to promote her art studio. That led me to a job where I was teaching in a university. Actually, 2 universities invited me to become adjunct professors teaching Indian cooking. And many of these things, I have to first say that, there were things that I learned from my mother that helped me to then pass on or take on these roles. And definitely, the cooking part was learning to cook myself, because while I was growing up, I didn't really do a lot of cooking and concentrated only on my studies. But so I learned a lot of, hands-on on the job training, but that was very rewarding. Again, those opportunities, I have to reflect back and say, in some ways, was always making me realize my own skills that I probably either had or I saw and I made my own. Always to do something with art and something with art. So even cooking was a form of art, and creating our home was also on a budget, was using my art skills. Very soon we moved from Pennsylvania to Germany. Germany allowed us opportunities that was very, I would say, unreal. Almost magical, because we were able to now travel, and we traveled to 17 countries within 2.5 years. I was volunteering a lot on base. My husband joined the army, and that's what I have to say first, because that opened doors that I had never realized before. The army was in a very we were in a bubble within Germany, so we were able to offer our services as either volunteer. So I became a Girl Scout leader, and I was volunteering at the school quite a bit. 9/11 happened, but honestly, all that just added a lot more in my, realizations of what I had to offer. So people were realizing that we were Muslims, and I think that was kind of also a way of being out there with the Girl Scouts, for example, educating them in what it takes to be a Muslim. A lot of people didn't know, and so that was interesting for me to have that opportunity to enlighten people as to how Muslims are and how normal we can be, and be accepted. It was also after 9/11, so it was a lot of questions being asked. How does this happen? How do Muslims do this? So, of course, I was also.
But can I just let me jump in and ask a question from what you've said so far? So, like one of the things I think you're talking about is like this dynamic between husband and wife, like in a situation where the husband is earning and the wife is a stay-at-home mother. It seems like one of the roles of the stay-at-home mother is to kind of be resourceful, like make use of that money, because money doesn't make a home. Money doesn't raise children. So the money is just the means for so many other things to happen. But then the stay-at-home mother has to make make use of that money to do all the things that need to happen. And especially when that's less, if the income is less, then that means you have to be almost like you almost kind of create income, not through actually making more money, but maybe by being more resourceful or kind of making do or being content and those kinds of things. So you reduce your need or your use. Is that the right dynamic? Is that the dynamic that you feel like you and your husband had?
Sure. I think that that was definitely the reason for some of my resourcefulness. But I think I always realized that I wanted to be the one who was taking care of the children and always making sure that, the home was not lavishly or luxuriously decorated, but that everything should be as needed. The best of the computer or technology that needed, or the books that they needed, using everything that is available to us. Yes, for sure. I think another thing that I would like to say is that though those were the reasons, but I think that those were opportunities also for me to realize that maybe I also had some potential to bring in some sort of not just income, but a good educational environment for the children, whether it be math and science and things like that, but also the traveling, the art, or whatever. So I think, yeah, I think that that's definitely a very important aspect of the life that we led. But I think what I was trying to get at is that we don't know the skills we have until those opportunities arise. And then you hone those skills. You have to sharpen those skills within you, whether you're a man or a woman. I don't think it matters, about what role. I mean, of course, those roles are there, but I'm saying that it's. I think we've had other guests that have spoken about, realizing that a need has to be fulfilled, and you find whatever resources you have, whether they are your skills or the things that are available to you, and you try to make it to the best of your abilities. And so that's what I was trying to get at. Once we decided that we'd come back to the States, then it was an opportunity for us to live in an environment of somewhat comfort, because we had the army to support us for our needs. And that's another thing I want to say is my wants and desires was the only thing that I needed to cut back on. The needs were always going to be fulfilled by my husband, who was earning money and so forth. So that was a very important realization for me. So therefore, I didn't feel like I needed to bring in the income so that we can live better. We were living perfectly well, and I'm very, I think, we were happy as the children were able to do whatever they needed to do as far as extracurriculars. They were playing soccer, they were in many clubs and so forth. So that was not the issue. Once we were back at stateside, though, we realized that my husband was not constantly going to be living with us, because we were in a place where the children found education, or a school that they were going to, that they didn't want to leave. My oldest son said, "Oh, I wish we could live the second or the third year, because that would be the first layer is just getting into the system of the school and what needed to be done." And so for that, my husband heard him and felt that I would take a tour that would be, that would allow us to continue to stay in one place. So he did that. He actually went to Korea for half a year, and that allowed us to extend our stay in San Antonio. And so that's how the kids were being raised. But at this point, though financially our needs were met, but all of a sudden I realized that I was a single mom. I had to raise my children single-handedly, and that was a bit of a difficult time for us. But it also allowed us to, well, again, the opportunity was there where I was trying to provide the best environment, the best education for them, Islamically as well. And so there was an opportunity for me to organize an Eid festival. the Eid festival required some funding. And so again, thinking back to things that my mother has taught me, I realized that I could maybe do a fundraiser. And the fundraiser was making small pocket purses that, out of fabric, and that kind of, I presented them hoping to get $200 so that we could have a petting zoo and a bouncer and a cotton candy machine and so forth. I also realized that within our community, we had some business owners that I could invite to come and rent out a spot so that we could use their rental money for for the lack of funding that we had. I had no idea that this was going to be the beginning of something that was going to last up until now. When the initial bags were received well and they sold, and people started asking me, do I make anything else? Can I make any other type of bag? I really had to realize, do I have it in me? Do I want to do this? Obviously, when somebody asks you, you feel excited that somebody's appreciating something that you have made. So it started off with that, and step by step, taking all the business steps that I needed to take, which I had no previous background in, was very daunting. And then also my sewing skills, I felt like I didn't have what it takes to be able to create something that was very unique or extra, that something could be that could be very viable. But my mother has always been the voice behind me, and she said, you can do it. Her giving me confidence, of course, helped me to build that confidence. And each step that I took, whether it was skills that I needed in order to make better purses, or to be able to run a business, was something that I never really planned or had a business plan, but it just evolved. And alhamdulillah, I think meeting the right people at the right time has helped. Having my work be considered good enough that it was in the newspaper, and then that opened a door. I found out that there was a bunch of people in our community that were also artists or something, and so they would ask me for opinions or for help. And so I think what I would like to impress is opportunities that land you in a certain place, you have a responsibility now to use that as a platform. That became a platform for me, not just to make bags, but also I realized that I could help refugees and immigrants in our community to find their own artistic talents, or to be able to market themselves. So either I helped them with their artistic abilities, or I gave them jobs in my business. And at that time, it was not really a company, or I didn't know where I was headed myself. Again, the platform, I say, because I also realized that as I started to find out opportunities to sell my bags in art shows and such, I was becoming very public. There were people who were noticing what I'm doing and who I am, either asking me about Islam, because this was again post 9/11, and we're living in San Antonio, Texas, in a very sort of Republican, mainstay, and I mean dominant, community, and a lot of them didn't really have a very good opinion about Muslims. So there was also that sort of question that people would ask, that how can you feel confident being out there in a hijab, and aren't you afraid? And I said, well, it's I learned a long time ago, my mom had said, just smile and be yourself, and people will see who you are and what you do, and that should be more valuable. And it was valuable, and that was what people noticed. And I didn't really have any incidences that I could speak of. And when I did have some incidences, it was very it was an opportunity again to talk about Islam. So that was something that I realized also, that I now had this greater responsibility of being the best example of a Muslimah doing business, drawing from our own Bibi Khadija and the great businesswoman that she was, and learning just how to sort of um, take each opportunity that came along. In fact, there was our local congressman. He actually invited me to be a facilitator because there was a little bit of animosity amongst people who were immigrants and refugees that were doing jobs, and people felt that their jobs were being threatened, or they weren't getting the jobs that those refugees were getting. And so there was this feeling of animosity or some sort of a ill feeling. And that was an opportunity for me to become a facilitator. I was glad to be a facilitator. I thought that, that's in fact, we had to be trained, and we went into, we were told that, we are trying to get them to speak, and that's our job as a facilitator. But I didn't realize that before the event, they sent a news crew to my home and said that we'd like to interview you. And I was not prepared for that, but that was an opportunity again for them to come in and see what I'm doing in my home. And I happened to have my friends who were actually immigrants and refugees that were working for me at the time. And so they were able to videotape us and so forth. And so again, being on the news and having that opportunity, I felt like it's all part of the sequence that I needed to follow in order to sort of not just do my job, but to also be a responsible person representing our community.
Let's take a pause there for prayer. It's in the Chicago area, prayer time. So we'll take a 5-minute break, just pray Maghrib, and we'll come back, inshallah.
Okay.
All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So I think we got kind of the timeline and the story from beginning to end. Are there questions that you all have about anything you've heard so far? I think what I wanted to highlight is that kind of the two stages that I think are there in your life, the kind of homemaking stage in the beginning with children and kind of building your family, and then once the children are moving on into college and to married life, then you found a way to transition into this other kind of a skill. So the business itself, I sent out kind of your description from your website of what you do, and the website itself. So these purses that she makes, I don't know if you got a chance to see them, but this is these are from that kind of humble beginning of that fundraiser purse. Now it's taken on a life of its own, and they're quite elaborate and amazing purses. What are some challenges that you faced? Are there things that you wish you had kind of known when you were getting into it, that someone else, if they're building a business of their own, that they should maybe try to learn those skills when they have the opportunity, rather than learning them on the fly?
I think that I would say that the difficulties that I had were not unique to my my position or my lack of education. I really didn't know that was what I wanted to do in life. It was it's like you're handed a baton and now you're running with it, and you're doing the best that you can. So along with the fact that I had to do develop my own skills, I also felt like my children are a part of what I was doing. So many times, you can't do it alone. You need a support system. I already said that my husband was not there most of the time. And so it was sometimes difficult because of that. And but having the children be, a part of, it's almost like you ask for help, and they start to learn also. And they
And what
realize,
are some examples of that?
my son in 10th grade, he built my website, or he, made my logo, and he helped me with just realizing how I could sell on Etsy. I created a shop on Etsy. Taking every opportunity that was either suggested to me by a friend, or people that I met along the way, customers, or other people, I would delve into it. I would dive into it, like decide, realize, is this something that I can do? Is this something that I can get help to do? And so that was also kind of a good bonding. It helped us to realize that the relationships matter. I remember we had Homework Central upstairs in our home in San Antonio, and we were sitting there talking about, where is this business going, what's happening, because it's a lot of work. I was setting up the booth with the tent, which has heavy poles, and you have a lot of investment there, and a lot of time and energy that was spent. And so
Can you just explain the way it works? So it's not just online shop selling, and it's not like a store. So
right.
just explain how you go about selling.
So in the beginning, it was just small, any opportunity I had, whether it was a church bazaar, a craft fair, and so forth. Later on, I realized that those were not places where people were ready to spend the kind of money. And my husband had said to me that, please, don't undersell yourself. If you're putting in so much effort and you're not with with the family because you're working and you're creating these bags, then don't sell them cheap, because you're putting in a lot of effort. You're using the best materials, and you're making sure that everything is heirloom quality. That was another need I felt like that was missing in the business, in the retail business, that you'd find purses and things that would break down, or they weren't really of good quality. So my intention was, let's make it the best quality. And having the Indian design background, I wanted to also, I felt that sometimes Indian artists are making these purses, but then because of some production issues, they would skimp on other materials. So material cost and everything was going into it. So I started to apply to shows where they would have to, I would be juried in. I would have to present my work. I would have to write about it. And again, another skill that I really had to tap into is my writing skills, to be able to describe what my work is, how I'm doing it, and then hope that they will invite me to their show. Now, being invited doesn't mean it's free. You're actually having to pay quite a lot of money to have the opportunity to showcase your work. And but that's where people were coming. They were paying a fee to get into the show. They know that they're getting quality because they've already been vetted and they have been invited. So those shows, but the work that I had to do was just as much, whether it was for a church or for one of these shows. So it was a lot of work, and therefore my husband said, make sure that you're pricing them according to what you're putting into it. And therefore I found that it was something that I had to keep in mind. Musa, you have a question?
Yeah.
I just had a question regarding, you said that you wanted to avoid lower quality materials when you're making it. So essentially you're making it the opposite of like a mass-produced purse or a product. But how much longer would that take you? Like, for example, as a guess, I'd say like a purse you can buy at a store would probably take a machine probably 20 minutes or something to just quickly assemble as it goes between machines. How would that like same product take? Like how long would that take you, and how does that factor into how you price your material, your product?
That's a very good question. So many times what I found is I couldn't base it on the amount of time it took. Each one of my purses is actually unique. It's not like I have a factory, it's not like I'm mass producing them. There might be some that I'm making, a few at a time that are similar, but each one is still going to be different. Time that it takes for me, I can only speak for me. I can't speak for those that are being sold in stores. But it would be designing, cutting, and then the sewing part. It matters. It would matter whether you're asking me at this point in my life or in the earlier stages of my life. Because when I was learning, obviously it would take me a lot longer, and I had to be very patient with myself and say, okay, I'm going to get this right. It meant opening it and redoing it, opening it and redoing it many times. Soon, when I was working with leather, that was not possible, because when you open up a leather, you've got perforation marks, and you can't really, it's not viable. You have to start all over again. So that was something. So for me, I sometimes say, oh, I can make this. This is an easy one. But the minimum time that I have ever spent on making the most simplest bag has been about 4 hours. And that's a very minimum, simple bag. But when it comes to anything else, I would probably say it would be upwards from 17 to 28 hours. I had to go to Hajj, and I wanted to make a bag for myself for Hajj. And so it was a backpack, and it's this backpack here. So it has a lot of different, patches, and I've got a lot of hardware, and I've had to buy the machinery, that would be able to do those types of work. So that one, actually, I had a plane to catch, so I was timing myself, and it literally took me 28 hours to make.
Musa?
I just had a follow-up question. You mentioned that you work with leather. Where do you get your leather to ensure that it's both high quality and halal?
Sure. That is something that I'm still actually looking into. But in the very beginning, I did buy a lot from Tandy, and I still continue to buy from Tandy because it's a local distributor. Now in San Antonio, I had the opportunity to buy from from people who were tanning their own hides and such. So I would buy there. I've also bought from Morocco because, like I told you, I've been able to travel a bit. And again, thanks to my mom, she took me on a trip to Spain to learn how to do Islamic design. And we learned how to do it on leather. And Morocco being a leather capital, I bought a lot of leather from Morocco. So I have also bought from Argentina. There was an opportunity to make a deerskin bag in Texas because they are hunters, and so from there I realized that I found a niche. I made a bag, and it has become such a popular bag that I find myself running out of hides. So I started to ask. The people from Argentina actually reached out to me and said, we see that you're selling these bags. Would you like to buy hides from us? So during the pandemic, I actually did buy them there. I just wanted to say something because I wasn't able to come to the full entrepreneurial spirit that I guess I recognize in myself. When I came to Illinois, I thought, oh my gosh, perhaps this is where my transition will occur. This is where I'll not be doing shows or whatever. And in the beginning, it was difficult because I didn't know the areas, and then pandemic happened. So I started making masks. So another thing that I want to say is the skills that I acquired and the skills that I had can be used not only, for purse making. Of course, I did make masks. And those are the types of things that you can offer. But I didn't know where I was headed after the pandemic. I had no idea where I've landed. I don't have a team anymore. In San Antonio, I had so many people that knew what I was doing, and they had already experienced my quality. And so they were buying over and over again. I had some people that have bought 12 purses and bags from me since the beginning of my venture. All of a sudden I had to sort of start over again in some ways. So the pandemic for about a year or almost a year and a half, all I was doing was making masks. So I stopped producing my bags, but I had an inventory of bags. And so when we were coming out of the pandemic, I just sort of tried. And that's when I realized that the inventory went really quickly. Replenishing was hard. and then I had so many orders. So I realized that there was a group of people. I mean, there was opportunity here as well. But also, we bought a home that had some rooms that were extra. We bought it because we thought, to be close to the family and so forth, and also to have the ability to have our family visit us. This was also a time when I realized that we could do Airbnb. So I didn't know that that was something that would fly, but especially in Elgin, because in San Antonio it was easy. It was a place where people wanted to visit, and we thought that that would be easy. And I did have plenty of people staying with us in our San Antonio home. But here I found that was another kind of a business opportunity. At the time when I started all these things, started back again with the shows, started with the Airbnb, my husband was also deciding what does he want to do, because he had retired from the military, but he also had a desire to have his own dental practice. So when he started his dental practice, there were times when whenever you're starting any business, it's difficult. So I thought this was my way of contributing, let me do so spinning my wheels. Now I don't have a family to take care of. I basically just have a home. And of course we have our extended family and our parents, and that involvement was just as important to me. But I did have some extra time that I could do the Airbnb too. So opportunities are everywhere. Sometimes they don't come very formally. It comes very informally. But my own travels and having stayed in places has made me understand that there's a value to opening up a home. If you have a couple of rooms that you can rent out, then that was something that I started to do as well.
Musa?
Sorry, I just have another question. This one relates to marketing. How did you begin marketing your store, and do you still have to market, or is it mostly word of mouth?
That is something that's lacking in my business. I wish that I was able to market a little bit more. I basically haven't done a lot of marketing. I post on social media. I have tried and learned some technical things that have helped me to be able to do that. Yes, it's a lot of word of mouth. It's a lot of people purchasing and believing in my product, or touching it and then being able to say, yes, I see the value and I see why you have it priced at such a price point, or so forth. And so that has helped. But marketing is something that I can't say I know exactly what to do, or I have done.
This is kind of related to that. Let's see if this creates a springboard. So one of the things that nowadays you walk into a store, oftentimes it's a franchise. Oftentimes you're dealing with people who may not even own, they don't own the business. They're just employees, maybe, a teenager who's just, working for a few months. So there's no sense of ownership, investment on the part of the store person that you're dealing with. And it's very impersonal. There's no name, exchanged. There's no information exchange. There's no conversation, no relationship built. Oftentimes, unless you go to a mom and pop store, then sometimes you have the opportunity to build a relationship. But your business is very different. You have relationships with your customers. Can you talk about that? How does that come about, and how important is that for you?
That is actually I think that is the engine behind my work. The personal connections that I've made over the years have actually each one of the interactions has been something that has potential to become a story. And eventually I do hope and plan to write a book about the interactions I've had. Every person that has purchased from me, whether a cancer patient who couldn't afford something one year and bought a $10 bag, and then when she was in remission, she came back and bought a $50 bag. And then right before I left, she comes running and she says, with her hair and everything, she says, I'm ready to buy another bag. Look at the bag I have. It was in, tatters. And she says, but I want another one from you, and I can spend $100, And so it was this, whether it's that or a Toyota factory worker who has only males in her family and didn't have anything, soft and pretty, and I made a bag for her, and she literally, when I was ready to give it to her, I said, oh, I forgot the zipper pull. And for a minute, I'm working on that for 30 minutes, and she's crying, and I said, oh my gosh, what happened? And she says, no, I've never had anything so beautiful made for me, and she goes on to say, so I mean, we've had heart-wrenching stories, that I've given this work that I've worked really hard with great intention, and hope and pray that they will be able to enjoy it for a long time. And so there's definitely been that kind of an interaction between customers, and it's been a very rewarding journey through that. Yesterday I happened to see a post of a friend who has about 6 of my bags, and she was wearing her bag while she was talking about Mother's Day, and I was like, that was my best Mother's Day gift, to see a bag that was sold in 2017, to this lady. And so I find this often recently, and I want to just say this alongside with another topic, which is, I've told you, I've iterated the fact that opportunities come all the time, and you have to just grab them when they do, and you never know what that will bring. And my mother has asked me to go with her, either when we went to Spain or recently to Canada. And I thought I was her plus one. And I just posted, as we were asked to do, we were asked to post some of our work, and I posted my bag.
Just tell them what it was in Canada that you went for.
Oh, yes. It was a conference. It was a art quilt conference. So all the conference attendees were people who were quilters. And I'm not a quilter, so I was telling my mom, I really don't know what I'm going to gain from this. But mom said, just come with me, and maybe, it is about sewing and art, so maybe you'll get something from it. And of course I got a lot from it. I was so inspired, whether it was, their artwork, or the way that they told about their art in their many lectures and so forth. But the plus, I was thinking that I was going as a plus one, and I'm going to be a non-entity, and I'll have nothing to do with any of these people. And this one lady, she comes by and she says, I bought a purse from you in San Antonio at the Riverwalk in 2014. And I begged and I bought it for a friend because she didn't know if she should spend that money. But I told her, of course you should, because it's handmade, it's so beautiful, and this and that. And she says, I begged her and I borrowed it from her so that I could bring it and show it to you. And I had no idea this was an online sale. So it was just an amazing thing. And of course, a lot of people then loved the bag as well. And so they were talking to me as if I was a contributor to the conference. So you never know when these opportunities become a sort of a reinforcement of the things that you are doing, or the things that you think, or the things that you're passionate about.
Yeah. I Musa, to your question also, I think maybe Zaid's his talk also spoke to this. Like when you're dealing with handmade things and quality, and it's not something that's mass produced, then the numbers that are there in advertising and algorithms and those kinds of things, they become irrelevant. Even for me, like, with farming, if you look at mass produced meat, there's so much wrong with that, but like raising animals one by one, and having a relationship with them, knowing them, seeing that they're healthy, like in these kinds of pursuits where everything's very personalized and very like hands-on, then advertising and those kinds of things are not so important. It's producing quality, doing the best you can, and that speaks for itself. It may not be sustainable as a business, but it's a lot more fulfilling, and you're actually creating something beautiful and unique.
I think the good intention is always a good reason for the good things that come from that too, when you start with a good intention. Ahmed, you have a question?
This is Ahmed Bandali. We can't see his face. Ahmed, your voice is coming very softly. Can you speak up or use your mic? Yeah, we can barely hear you.
I just until
Hello, is it better now?
Yes,
yeah.
that's good. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, it's my headphones. You were talking about people that you've seen like over the journey, and like people that you've met who had like similar experiences as you, and like you've brought them into your company. When you bring them into your company, do you bring them as employees? Do you bring them as volunteers?
Well,
Like
so
the refugees and all you're talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
yes, in the beginning, Ahmed, I really I learned the hard way. I had refugees working for me, and I had to teach them. And sometimes they were owning their work. They were literally signing their names on the back of their, the work that they did, and they were very proud. Or they'll ask me after a show, "Did my bag, sell?" Or if it did, it was like such a rejoice. It was a moment of happiness for them for sure. But unfortunately, it wasn't very sustainable because yes, they were learning, so it wasn't as fruitful for me. It was not profitable for me. I was paying them, they were working for me, I was teaching them as they were working, but I realized that it was I literally I needed to take a break from having them work for me for 2 years so that I could finish the entire bag that they had started on to help me. So I was very slow at my work. I was doing the outside part of the work. So for example, I want to just show you the leather that I was working on, the embroidery or something, that I'm working on. That's going to take forever. They might have done the lining. The lining is fabric, and the lining is what they might have done. But the actual outer part would take me so long. So I was behind too much, and I was in debt too much. If I was, the breadwinner of the house, I would not have been very successful. So unfortunately, I had to stop. And later, somebody who had actually graduated from fashion school came to work for me, and our production and everything went up. I believe it was 3 times. So it was definitely better when I hired somebody. She wasn't a Muslimah, she wasn't anybody in our community, but she actually sought me out. She called me up and she said, "Do you have a place for me in your company?" And I was like, "Well, this is how I work." And she said, "That's great, because I'm a grandmother too, and I only have 2 days to give," and so forth. So it was perfect. But we tripled our production, and it was very good. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question as well as you had hoped I would. I just want to say, my work has taught me so many things. I already told you about taking chances and taking opportunities as they come. One of the opportunities that came was right before my daughter was getting married. We see this Muslimah across, the river walk, and we go over to her and we become friends. Her father is with her, and her name is Azra Kalfan. I don't know if Sajida is that her sister?
No, yes, Sajida's here. I
Okay.
think she's also with
Okay.
Ahmed.
So I had no idea who this woman was. We befriend each other, and she comes to our home. They see what I have. At that time, it was my master bedroom that I had converted into a studio. And Uncle Anali Uncle was just so appreciative of what I had created, that he was like, "This should be in a magazine. Take pictures." He was just so appreciative of what I was doing. And Azra had told me about this wonderful opportunity that I should take advantage of. And she not only did she tell me, but she kept telling me and forcing me to apply for a fellowship. It's a Tory Burch Foundation fellowship, or Tory Burch fellowship. I did apply to that. And through that, I was able to actually, I didn't get the fellowship, but I was able to take classes, online classes through eCornell. And so my education continues, whether it is formally or informally. The opportunities that have come my way, I've been very grateful for. I feel like every step, I've realized my own skills I've realized what I've had. My husband yesterday asked me, what is my superpower? And I had to think for a second, but I said organization. And I don't know if that was what I would have said earlier on in my life, but organization has helped me a lot because whether it's contacts that I've had that I need to keep organized, or ideas that I have that are for my books, that I'm drawing all the time and collecting from Pinterest or wherever, to be able to access them, to be able to organize my entire studio has been kind of an interesting journey as well. Some of these have been clothes or fabrics that have been given to me, donated by furniture stores because they throw them away. That speaks to a very big part of my life as well, which is repurposing and recycling. Again, a nod to my mom, who doesn't throw away anything. But I have a great pleasure to say that, this was saved from being thrown away, and then creating a bag or creating something useful, and creating not just something useful, but producing something artistic for this world, has been very important to me.
Asia, and I just look at Sajda's comment in the chat box as well.
Oh yeah.
Asia, go ahead.
So I was wondering, do you have any plans for your business in the future, for the next 20 years or so? What do you have envisioned for your business?
Sorry, I started to look at Sajida's message. What did you say? What is my vision in the next 20 years?
Yeah, or so, roughly. Do you have any plans for your business?
Yes, thank you for asking. I do have a very big vision. I've told you one, which was I would like to write about the not only the customers, but I'd like to create a book that has very good instruction on how to create the bags that I've sold that have sold well. And so kind of a how to and plus a storybook. So I'm not really sure how to go about it, but that's one big dream of mine, pushed very strongly by my husband. So I don't know when that'll happen, but it's in the making. And the second thing that is really, really important to me, and it's been a dream and something that I wrote about for the fellowship application, which is I'd like to create an institute where people can, kind of a maker space, where people can use my machines, use what I have available, and either create it themselves or learn how to do whatever they want to do, whether it's fabric related, or I would like to open it up to, all mediums of art, whether it's woodworking or mosaic or something. But I think because these are all things that my mother has taught me. We've done mosaic, we've done stained glass, we've done, woodworking. I don't know how much I can offer, but I think starting out with at least fiber art, any kind of fiber art, whether it's clothing designing or drawing people, having teachers to teach those types of things, because I only know how to make purses, but other people who know how to do other fiber art. And then, so this institute, I don't know when this will happen, but this is something that I have in my mind, and I had planned to do it when I had the ability. We were going to use that money that I made selling my home in San Antonio, but we invested it in my husband's dental practice. His work has always come first. He's our, he's the mainstay. So without his day job, I can't do what I do. So I don't know when my dream will come true, but it's a dream. I need a team. I need investors. I need people to be able to say, yes, I believe in this and I think we can make it happen. But I think I've heard this from Oprah Winfrey, that unless you have, you can't give. So I pray to Allah that Allah, make me so successful that I can give to others. There have been two very big prayers in my mind always. One is, Allah, if you're happy with what I'm doing, make it so easy that I can flourish, or make it so difficult that I have to give up. And then the second one is this, that make me successful so that I can then pass it on to others, because I think that's a very big part of who I am and what I've built. I'm ready to just teach others. I've enjoyed teaching how to sew. I've given some teaching classes. I just don't know when my time, how to allot my time for both, for creating and for teaching. So, Ahmed, did you have another question?
Yeah. So you said something about stained glass, and I was just wondering because I go to Catholic school, and in like church they always, like, not in church but like in like religion class and stuff, they always talk about how the stained glass of churches is very like amazing and stuff. So have you ever put like stained glass on a building or something like that?
On a building?
Yeah.
No, I have purchased a very beautiful piece of stained glass art that maybe we can share later as a picture, but I learned how to do stained glass. Again, my mother had signed up for this class that she wanted to take herself, but she couldn't, so I took it for her. And I realized that that itself is a totally different art form that needs its own equipment and knowledge and time, dedicated time. I do have a stash of glass that I have accumulated, either broken pottery or glass that I found that either in different parts of the world. Even I've collected colored glass, and it's all nicely labeled in my attic. I don't know when I'll do it, but I've never done it on a building, but I have an affinity to stained glass. I think it has a lot to do with the color and the the texture and all that I'm drawn to.
Are there any last questions before we close? All right. Well, thank you so much, Appa. And yeah, this is really, it's actually one of the fun parts of doing this is that I'm talking to people that I know. Sometimes I've known my whole life, and but it gives like a focus to be able to talk about something or hear their story in a way that maybe I've never heard before. So that's very interesting.
Well, I'm glad, and I'm the opportunity. I was just wondering, are there any entrepreneurs on board?
We'll see. Yeah.
Very
I
nice.
see you have an interest, or you've actually have you done anything business wise?
Yeah, I'm actually in the works of starting a clothing brand. We're hoping to do our first like releasing of products in a couple months. So.
Wow.
I would love to see your work. I would love for you to reach out and kind of give me a website or something that you have or whatever you created. That would be great. And I would love to support you. So if you have some place that you're starting to sell, I'd love for me to be able to see it, because that's another thing in our culture. Well, in our community, it's been hard to make people believe in what I'm doing as good quality and worth spending that much money in purchasing, sometimes, because they think, oh, name brand, that's the only way to secure good quality work. But it would be nice for me to see what you're doing as well. I did.
I shared her website, so I think through that you can contact her, and if you want to create a connection, that would be great.
Yeah, if any of you want to reach out to me for any other questions, I'd be happy to. Or if you want to come and see where my studio and see what my work, or even take classes, please feel free to let me know, because that's something that I want to do more so. All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Rizwan, and thanks all of you for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.